Hey guys, welcome into a special edition of the Unsportsmanlike Content Podcast. Your host, What's the Deal Sports, Zach Deal, joined along with co-host Sean Redden. How we doing, brother?
Hey, what's good, Zach? Glad to be back.
Yes, sir. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Haven't seen you guys in a while. Happy to be back on here. Make sure you guys go check out Viget in the App Store. You can see on the ticker below that's streaming across. The bottom is the promo code, capital U, capital C, lowercase sports, and you guys will get redeem 1,000 free points to use as you please. So make sure you guys go do that. Go check out the Twitter page, Facebook. We're obviously live on right now, Instagram, and our website that's still under construction, but we got some stuff on there for you guys too. So go check all that stuff out.
And just a quick Viget note. For those who listen to my weekly podcast, The Green Zone, where I give out my NFL and college football picks each week for my gambling people out there. If you're a fan of that show, I know a lot of people are. Basketball NBA and college basketball, I do bet on as much as I do the NFL. But there's just too many games and there's too many different time variances for me to be able to record a podcast every week to be able to cover every game. So I actually was talking with Viget, and I'm actually for the basketball season and then starting the MLB season once that starts in March or April. I'm not sure when they're going to start up. All my picks for every sport other than football are going to be exclusively posted on my page in the Viget app. So if you guys want to hear my NBA, college basketball, or MLB picks coming up, I'll never give you a hockey pick. It's not me.
Yeah.
But I'm recently a hashtag big hockey guy, but I won't be giving out any hockey picks. So if you're interested in college basketball, NBA, or MLB picks when that eventually starts up, make sure you download the Viget app. And then, of course, like Zach mentioned, use the code UC Sports and claim them free Viget coins.
Exactly. It gives you more incentive to go on there, go get some of Sean's picks, very successful, and then you got some free points to use as you do it too. So but let's jump into some NFL playoff preview. Tomorrow, big day. It's the inaugural year of the extra playoff team added into the playoffs. So we got a comment on here already from the Bears.
The Bears.
Here we go. Let's start off with this. Bears are going to beat the Saints, and the Saints are going to complain how the league added a 7th seed to screw them over again. All right, so he was listening early. That was the first point that we hit on. So yes, this is the inaugural year of the 7th seed, which means that now there is only going to be one team getting the bye. So for the AFC, obviously the Chiefs, who I think everybody has as the Super Bowl favorites right now, at least in the AFC as the favorites as well. In the NFC, you have Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. It's funny, if you look at the situation, I'm not trying to start off with some Eagles slander on here or anything, but
slander away.
Yeah, but the Eagles, I mean, they draft a second round quarterback that they ended up actually having to use this year, and everybody's all up and roaring everything. And then Aaron Rodgers, he's a guy get drafted in the first round, and he just goes out and most likely wins MVP and secures the number 1 seed in the NFC. So that just kind of shows you the difference between above average quarterback talents and some of the greatest. In my opinion, Aaron Rodgers is the most talented quarterback to ever step foot on a football field.
I agree.
And I still think to this point, and everyone wants to talk about Pat Mahomes, who we just brought up with the Chiefs, and how great he is early in his career. And I'm so intrigued to see the rest of his career and how it maps out, especially this year, too. It gives you a lot of incentive. But, man, Aaron Rodgers is still working and still cooking. I mean, he could end up going down as the greatest
much like we want to say in Philadelphia. I haven't recorded with you in a while, so I'm not sure your opinion on it. And again, we're not going to keep talking about the Eagles. This is a playoff matchup. Just to bring up to Zach's point, how he said Aaron Rodgers is back to MVP form and absolutely balling this year. You saw he kind of petered out with Mike McCarthy there, but then once they swapped and brought in Matt LaFleur, he's actually rejuvenated Aaron Rodgers. And not to say Aaron Rodgers has never been bad, but he was kind of having, for Aaron Rodgers standards, down years. And people were even,
which was 27 touchdowns.
And people weren't even mentioning him as the top quarterback anymore. But now the past couple of years, he's back in that discussion, and I think a lot of it came with the fresh voice, the head coaching change, and that's what a lot of people here in Philadelphia want to see is the Eagles make a head coaching change and get a fresh voice in here to maybe, because even with Jalen Hurts in there, the offense still looked like shit. It was
Yeah.
more exciting watching Jalen Hurts run around, but like from a passing standpoint, it was still shit.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
like to
100% a
hit on that
scheme thing
point.
on the coaches.
To hit on that point even more, like the Packers, that just shows how the Packers just really needed a fresh voice, and they
Exactly.
really didn't have too much talent around Aaron Rodgers. It was really fading. They had Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb kind of at the end of their primes, and they had to just switch stuff up. And then, like I've been telling you guys forever, if you follow my personal page, Devontae Adams is a straight killer. 2 seasons in college, 38 touchdowns, 24 touchdowns in 1 season. That's top 3 all time in an NCAA season. So this is nothing new that he's doing, and he can truly carry an offense. And you see how well
And
Aaron Jones is playing
that's why
too as a play
I
caller.
actually
So,
brought up a couple weeks ago on my social media pages. Everybody talks about taking Rager over Justin Jefferson this year. People talk about taking JJ Arcega-Whiteside over DK, and I'm like, bro, do you forget we took Jordan Matthews over Devontae Adams? Like
yeah,
that might be the biggest one of them all.
exactly. And the funniest part was Devontae Adams was even more intriguing. He played at Fresno State, but he was playing with an NFL quality quarterback in
Derek
college
Carr.
in Derek Carr. So
Yeah.
you were able to see a very good look of what he's capable to do at the next level, having that quality of a quarterback. And you saw it's just translated. And I mean, if we're comparing Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers, I don't think there's anything to say about that. But I'm going to answer the Bears question right after this. But even more so to hit on the Packers. It's funny because the first season, Matt LaFleur in the offseason literally tore his Achilles playing like basketball, and he was like coaching from the box like high school football style. And it was like a whole nother perspective. But maybe it was just a whole nother look that they needed to see. And Aaron Rodgers, man, he's just balling. That TD to int ratio is just outrageous all time. Like every year, it just seems to get better. I think 2010, the year they won the Super Bowl, if I believe correctly, it was like, or 2011, it was like 45-6, and this year I'm pretty sure it was like 45-4, if I believe correctly. So he's just absolutely outrageous. But to hit on the Bears, Sean, what do the Bears have a chance on Sunday?
I mean, I'm personally going to be betting the Saints minus the 10, but I expect it to be an intriguing game in which the Saints just kind of pull away.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on this. I don't want to give out too much because then you guys aren't going to listen to the fucking Green Zone that comes out later tonight. But I'm personally probably going to be betting the New Orleans Saints minus the 10, but I'm also probably going to be on the over 48 as well because I think the Bears are going to be able to hang in this game for the most part. And when you have a team with 10 points, the backdoor cover is going to be open the whole time. But as far as winning the game, I don't know. Like Mitch Trubisky has been pretty good since he came in for Nick Foles, and it's kind of crazy. If the Bears never made that quarterback change, they're probably not waiting till the last day to see if they get into the playoffs. Like Mr. Trubisky probably already had it clinched a couple weeks ago if he remained the starter all season long. But one thing the Bears have working for them going into this game versus New Orleans is the Saints always lose a playoff game that nobody thinks they're going to lose. You can go back to the Vikings last
Yeah.
year. You can go back to the Rams game before. I mean, obviously the pass interference penalty, we won't go there. The Stephon Diggs walk-off touchdown, the crazy-ass play at the end of the game. Like the Saints just always find a way to lose a game that people don't think they have any business losing. And in my opinion, that would be this game, the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and just to hit on that, I don't want to keep hitting on the Eagles. It's just what's fresh in my mind because that's obviously being local to that area is what I see. But it's just a difference of really the passing game has been a little bit better with Mitch Trubisky in there, but it was kind of just a difference with if you have a guy who's struggling to play the quarterback position and he's not mobile and he can't really use his legs as a bailout to make plays. Then it's really going to be a stagnant offense. But when you're able to at least have somebody that can move around back there and make some plays with his legs and keep things continued, I think that was the things that changed with both the Eagles and the Bears offense between Mitch Trubisky getting back in there and using his athleticism, allowing the playbook to open up a little bit more, rollouts, and just get things going. The run game has been a lot better too. And
David Montgomery has came on.
Eagles ran for a lot, had 200-yard rushers versus the Saints, who obviously the Bears are playing a couple weeks back in the regular season after 50-plus games of not giving up a 100-yard rusher because of what the quarterback was able to do and provide in the rushing game. So maybe that's a area that the Bears can hit on this week and really
And
try and use Trubisky to
Trubisky
use his legs.
is a sneaky runner. He's a sneaky runner.
He is a very sneaky runner. He doesn't have too many moves, but he's deceptively fast.
Yeah.
I mean, if it came down to it, Mitch Trubisky as a runner, pure runner, Mitch Trubisky or Daniel Jones?
Trubisky.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I've seen enough. It was 80 yards and then, yeah, a little tumble. So I think I've seen enough. But also the Bears also brought up Drew Brees as well. So we'll hit on how well do you think Drew Brees plays in the playoffs this year? I mean, is he going to go out upset
it's going to be
this year?
I think it's gonna be a typical like Drew Brees game. Like his arm is cooked. I've been catching heat because I've been saying it the past 2 or 3 years. I'm like, yo, Drew Brees has a noodle. They're like, oh, he's a top 5
but his
quarterback.
arm being cooked, being in the Saints offense, he could play till he's 50. His arm being cooked because Alvin Kamara's in the backfield and
exactly.
can really break 6 tackles. So.
You can lean on Kamara and Latavius Murray at the backfield. Yeah. Murray's actually he might be the best number 2 running back in the league.
Yeah, pure runner.
He's been having a pretty good season.
And he's huge. A lot of people don't know how big he is. He's 6'3", 230, and he's fast.
And then also most teams have like their number 1 like receiver. Like if you look at the Chiefs' offense, it's Tyreek Hill. You look at the Packers, it's Devontae Adams. You look all around, like it's a lot of their number 1 receiver is a player who stretches the field and like gets you that big play. But like for the Saints, they have Michael Thomas, who's probably most likely, in most people's consensus, top 5 receiver in the NFL. But he's an underneath guy. He's a volume catcher, and that fits Drew Brees. And this is actually going to be the first time they play together in months. Because once Brees came back from the ribs injury, Michael Thomas has been out. So I'm intrigued to see that.
I won't question that chemistry, though. Not to cut you off, but I will not question that chemistry. I mean, we saw them put up an NFL record worth of catches last year, and I feel like the point that you're hitting on is the Saints just love to nickel and dime you down the field with all the skill position players and the matchups they can create. And a lot of, honestly, their pass plays that come up huge down the field are to Jared Cook. And tight end plays really down the field like that, or maybe Alvin Kamara getting matched up on a linebacker on a wheel route or on a Texas route or something like that. But like you said, at the wide receiver position, the only person they really lean on to go deep like that is Emmanuel Sanders. And we've seen him make
Tre'Quan Smith is hit or miss.
Yeah, he shows up sometimes, but a lot of times he's just not there. But he's definitely shown up sometimes in his career.
But I feel like I know we got the Bears tuning in, so I want to shout him out. I don't want to sit here and just force the Saints down your throat. So, going to the Bears side of football, we already talked about Trubisky's playing really good football, probably the best football of his career over recent weeks. And like Marshawn Lattimore is probably going to be shadowing Allen Robinson. That's going to be a matchup that I'm really intrigued to see this weekend. And then David Montgomery, like I said, has just been unreal these past couple weeks. I know he probably made a couple people appearances in their fantasy football leagues in the championship games with the way he poured it on down the stretch. Cordell Patterson has actually been pretty solid when he's had to fill in for David Montgomery. He's a guy who's kind of a jack of all trades player. But I'm also a big fan of Cole Kmet, the tight end for the Chicago Bears. And I think he could actually have an interesting matchup versus Malcolm Jenkins, who has been getting cooked by tight ends all season.
Yeah, and he can do a lot over to stretch the middle of the field, and then you get into the red zone, and you know who's coming. Jimmy Graham. Moss, every single time. Jimmy Graham just keeps doing it. People go look at those touchdown numbers just consistently every year.
Mm-hmm.
He's still doing it to this day. He had a ridiculous one in primetime this year, that one-handed catch on a corner. So 6'7", 285, have fun one-on-one in the red zone trying to match up with Jimmy Graham. But like you said, that established run game that the Bears are able to lean on, it's old-fashioned football. Really good defensive play and old and productive running and play action passes off of that. So Mr. Trubisky can also use.
I thought their Week 17 game, it's a guy I've been wanting them to get I actually picked them up off waivers early in the season for my fantasy leagues, but then nothing ever came of it, and it was pretty disappointing because I think this guy has the ability to be like a Curtis Samuel type guy, or maybe even a little better if you actually give him the ball. I'm talking about Darnell Mooney.
Yes, sir.
Finally, Week 17, the Bears and Trubisky got the ball into Mooney's hands, and we saw what he could do with it. That's a match because outside of Lattimore, I mean, you could say Janoris Jenkins is like, Patrick Robinson is like, eh. So, I mean, outside of Lattimore, there's really no like shutdown corner on this Saints defense. They rely just on a solid unit and especially
Yeah.
the
And they
pass
make
rush
plays
up
together
front.
too. Like they
That's
track
what I
the ball
said.
down.
Yeah, they're just a
They'll have
solid,
two guys
cohesive
going up and
unit.
jump balls in almost every situation. Safeties and corners always helping out with each other. The times, like you said, though, Malcolm Jenkins getting matched up on an island by himself with a mismatch, and then there's a lot. There's a low key. The Chicago Bears have some good skill position players. They just haven't really seen to puzzle the piece together. Matt Nagy gave up his play calling duties, and you've obviously seen the difference that it's made, at least for the run game itself. So, yeah, so I'm excited. I mean, I saw Darnell Mooney in primetime on Monday Night Football, wide open double move on Jalen Ramsey, my favorite, and I think the best defensive back in the league, double move, and Nick Foles just didn't have enough time to complete it, but you never know if Mitch Trubisky's in there, maybe just wings in. That's a 99-yard touchdown right there. So Darnell Mooney's flashed at some times. They got playmakers all over the field, but like you said, and we've all been saying, it's going to come down to that run game and how well that defense is going to be able to show up and what they're going to be able to do to Drew Brees. And that Saints defense loves to wreak havoc on the defensive line and really get after Mitch Trubisky. So it's going to be a real test whether he can get out, make plays with his legs, and also stay calm and not always try and make plays with his legs and sit there and look for options down the field as well. So
Agreed.
Also we got another comment. Rodgers is the man. I think we all know Rodgers.
No argument here.
Yeah,
no, actually, he's according to Stephen A. Smith, he's a bad man.
Tell me, not even being biased though, but tell me how funny the Stephen A. Smith, the Cowboys, like the framed panorama, like literally coming in out of nowhere, like that. Come on, that's the funniest thing I ever seen.
And he has, that's the only time of year he wears a Cowboys hat too.
Yeah, exactly. And you know it's coming, but it's still funny every single time.
Yeah.
But since Aaron Rodgers was brought up, the number one seed, they're obviously not playing this weekend, but we are doing an NFL playoffs preview podcast where it's going to cover everything. What's the outlook for the Packers? Are they going to actually be able to get over the hump this year and make it to the Super Bowl? And I think once you make it to the Super Bowl, anything can happen. So it doesn't matter what team you're matching up with. It could be, I mean, we've seen it as somehow – don't quote me on this. And if you're popping in the podcast and popping out, don't hold this to my regard or hold me accountable for this. But if somehow the Bears made it to the Super Bowl, they have a chance. It doesn't matter what team, even if they played the Chiefs, they have a chance just because it is what it is. That's just how the game goes.
Any given Sunday, absolutely.
But with the Green Bay Packers, what do you expect from the Green Bay Packers this year? Do you think Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are really going to have this strong a connection and really be able to just kind of really work with themselves? I know Valdez-Scantling shows up at times, but he also drops some balls in some questionable times. Aaron Jones, they got some weapons, but it really comes down to Devontae Adams doing work. So is he going to continue to just dominate?
I think this year, I think the NFC is super wide open. I don't think there's really one dominant team. If you had to probably pick the team that is the best overall, it would probably have to be the Green Bay Packers. But I think them getting the number one seed, going to be having these teams like Drew Brees, if they beat the Bears, that's an indoor team. Going to have to go to the cold, the tundra in Lambeau and try to win that game. Same thing with Tom Brady, given Brady's used to it by playing up here for the Patriots. But the rest of that Buccaneers team isn't. They're not used to playing this late.
Yeah, but a great point about bringing up the Bucs and the Packers together is how weird was the NFC this year? Primetime football, we see 38-3 Bucs getting shellacked on Sunday Night Football. The Bucs creamed the Packers this year.
I have a theory on that.
What's your theory?
It's actually like it's kind of not what I'm about to say is a fact. Is Tom Brady goes to bed at 8 p.m. every night. Like, that's not a lie. Like, that's like a thing. He goes to bed at 8 p.m. every night because he's up early for workouts and stuff. But he goes to bed at 8 p.m. And I honestly think when they have to play primetime, his body is just like tired. Like, even though I'm sure he changes his like schedule around when he has to play a primetime game. But when once you're on that sleep schedule and you've got that internal clock in your body, it is what it is. You're going to need a couple of days to adjust. And I think when they have to play a night game, Brady is a little slower with his processing and all that because his body is used to being asleep at that time.
Okay, so with that being said, I just checked the schedule and I saw Saturday night 8-15.
Yeah,
The
that doesn't.
Washington football team, the nameless, the Washington football team. I still can't believe they went on a season. Shout out to the Washington football team, honestly. Being dead serious, because they went on the whole football season, so much adversity between having the worst owner, arguably in sports, so much turmoil going on, just a lot of just bad stuff, bad PR, bad press, no name, just switching their name, all this stuff. And they still somehow, regardless of their record, were the team that was able to pull it out in the NFC East. So shout out to them. But I just checked the
I
schedule.
hope. By the way, I hope they don't ever get a name. I kind of like at first I was like, yo, what? They're dead ass gonna call themselves the football team, but it grew on me. I actually like the uniforms.
I like the uniforms 100%.
I
The
like
WFT abbreviation is actually cool. I just don't, as a whole, when you say the Washington football team, then I don't. Then it gets kind of weird.
yeah.
But the WFT, I'm kind of down with. I think that's
Every time somebody says like Schefter, like Rappaport or something, when they're doing like who's in, who's out, like Sunday morning before the game, and they type like WF, I always read it as what the fuck first.
Yeah, no, yeah. Always read it as like an abbreviation of some other sort. But I mean, it's going to be interesting on Saturday night. I mean, I think one of the biggest matchups is what's going to go down between the 2 first-round picks for either side. The Bucs, Tristan Wirfs is definitely going to get matched up with Chase Young or anybody across that defensive line. I mean, they're ferocious.
Yeah.
And you look at the Bucs, Mike Evans looks like he's about to play this week, and Mike Evans is Mike Evans. Mike Evans, I mean, look at him. Mike Evans has never had 96 or more catches in a season, and he's gone for 1,000 yards in every single year he's been in the NFL. And most of those seasons are like 68 catches, 72, 75, mid-70s. He just puts in work. He's one of the best downfield receivers, low-key, because you can just throw those back doors. He has so much, he can just box you out. Obviously, in the red zone, he puts in work, too, with that frame. So, but he's going to go. I mean, it's funny because Chris Godwin was like kind of complaining a little bit this week about, like, jokingly a little bit about the role he would play if Mike Evans wasn't playing. It was like, look at that offense. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski. Like, go down the line. You know what I mean? Like,
Just
Antonio
weapons.
Brown. I didn't even
Weapons.
answer. Antonio Brown still might be Antonio Brown, week 17, 11 catches, 140 and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I know there's incentive base behind it to get him those 38 catches for the season or however many it was. But, I mean, listen, if you're getting him hot at the end of the season, I think, honestly, I'm a big Mike Evans guy, huge Mike. I've always been a huge Mike Evans guy. I tell people Mike Evans made Johnny Manziel who he was at Texas A&M. That's what I tell people.
Kind of hard to argue that, yeah.
But with that being said, something in my gut still tells me Antonio Brown is not only possibly the best receiver on the field, but arguably the best player on the field still. And I saw a little glimpse of that last week.
Even going back, even before last week at the Lions game, that ball he caught in the corner of the end zone, like that's a tough ass.
That's what I'm saying. Those type of plays where he's
routine.
cutting off guys and he's just making plays out of his realm, and it seems like, wow, this guy's really back. And it's like you forget sometimes that because the Bucs have so much talent, they use so many different guys and they come at you in so many different ways. You forget that these guys are on the team. So I'm going to be interested because if the pass rush isn't able to get home, I mean, the Washington football team does have for them the stationary part of Tom Brady. And again, he's just a master at
but that's what
I
honestly think this is a really bad matchup for Washington because 100%. I think the Bucs are going to put up points in this game. I think the Bucs are going.
I don't think they're going to be able to get the pressure that they need.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. The Washington defense, their secondary isn't very good. Their defense thrives off of the pass rush that they're able to generate. Because the corners normally don't have to cover for that long. But this Bucs O-line, especially with Ali Marpet in there, is underrated in my opinion. I know Brady's 100%. Been hit a decent amount this year, but Ali Marpet in there, he's missed a few games. He makes a huge difference, one of the better guards in the NFL. And Tristan Wirfs is just getting better every week. But the Buccaneers, here's where I think the Bucs have a good matchup versus Washington, but it's going to come down to Bruce Arians' willingness to break away from his design scheme. Bruce Arians, his whole coaching career, has ran a vertical offense. Tom Brady is not a vertical. Tom Brady is not a vertical quarterback, at least not anymore. And he can't. I'm not saying he doesn't have the arm to stretch the field because he's shown flashes where he's able to do it. But with this O-line and then with Brady not really being able to move like that, you got to have the ball quick, especially against this type of defense.
Exactly.
If you're just nickel and diming them down the field and you can throw, you have guys who can make plays underneath like Godwin, Gronk, and Antonio
Scotty
Brown.
Miller, man.
And then
Scotty Miller's
exactly,
going to
yep.
make some huge plays as well.
And then you
On
have,
Saturday
if
night.
you're able to feature like Ronald Jones or like Fournette out the backfield.
I
And
think Ronald Jones heavy dosage early, and obviously Ronald Jones has played very well this season. And it's funny because they gave Antonio Brown the more incentive when they could have got Ronald Jones 1,000 yards rushing. And I think you guys know how high 2 or 3 years ago I was on Ronald Jones when I wanted him in the back end of the first round. But I think if you attack them early and get Ronald Jones out in the pass game and get him going like that and really get a lead, and then you just bring in a fresh Leonard Fournette for that second half when you're up, and I think that's the recipe. And I think that's why the Bucs are so dangerous because they can just come at you in so many different ways, so many different weapons on the field.
I'm sure we'll hit on it at the end of the show, like who we have as our Super Bowl matchups. But yeah, I'm pretty high on the Bucs, and like I said, but it's all gonna come down to it's like a matchup base. Like Bruce Arians was able to run his offense that he normally does when they played the Packers earlier this season, and you saw it cost them twice versus the New Orleans Saints. Brady's just getting hit left and right. You don't have the line or the quarterback to sit there for 5 or 6 seconds and wait for guys to something to develop downfield. Bruce Arians has to realize that and adjust and start taking what the defense is giving them underneath. And I think if they do that this weekend, they roll Washington.
Oh, 100%. And I think Washington, if they get down this game, it's going to be a really bad time because they're not a team that's going to be trying to climb back. And you see they came back versus the Steelers.
I mean, Doug Peterson had to ruin the NFL.
Yeah,
just to lose that game versus Washington last week. So,
it's crazy. Let me ask you this before we move on: do you think if the Giants were to make the playoffs, not to harp on it or anything, but who has the better matchup with the Tampa Bay Bucs? I mean, it's not really a good matchup at all, but between New York and Washington.
I mean, the Bucs and the Giants met on a Thursday night football earlier in the year, and it was actually a pretty good game. The Buccaneers pulled it out at the end. But that's a game where I think the second time around the Buccaneers like really show up, and I think they would roll the Giants as well. I honestly think with the pass rush that Washington has, they might be able to put up a bigger fight than the Giants because I think the Bucs would walk down the field on the Giants with their defense is in now.
One thing to say about that game specifically, not to harp on it like we said, but the Giants, that game really put on the map to the world, like, or nationally, that these Giants defensive backs are serious. Like you saw James Bradbury and how well he played this season coming over there. Their defensive backs were recovering at outrageous rates and tracking down balls when they were beat by 5 to 10 yards off the line of scrimmage and just making some plays. So they kept themselves in that game. But obviously the Tampa Bay Bucs, like you said, I have them highly regarded as well. And it's going to be tough. There's so many players to match up with, even if you have a really good defense. I mean, look at what Washington football team's able to throw at you with their defensive line rotation, but that might not just be enough this weekend.
Right.
Let's move on to another matchup. This one is like really intrigues me. Let me start off with this. The Buffalo Bills. Are you ready to get them over the hump and start believing in the Buffalo Bills? Are this the second best team in the AFC?
Yes.
As the record shows.
Yes, I think the Buffalo Bills are the second best team in the NFL.
Okay.
Only behind the Chiefs. I think whoever comes out the AFC is winning the Super Bowl. But I'm super high on the Buffalo Bills. If you take away the Hail Mary from Kyler Murray in that game in Arizona, that you're talking about the hottest team in football. I mean, we're still talking about the hottest team in football. Stephon Diggs has just been unreal with Josh Allen this year. Zach Moss is providing some stability in that backfield. And then you have Devin Singletary to spell him. Cole Beasley having a great year in the slot. And this coaching staff, like Dabble's now getting head coaching love all around the NFL with all these openings. Sean McDermott just earned Coach of the Year. He deserved it. He's flipped the culture around in Buffalo. And then this Bills defense is getting – I was really high on the Bills defense before the season started, but then they lost a couple linebackers to injuries. But you still have Tre'Davious White. You still have Hyde and Poyer back there at the safety spot. But Matt Milano coming back at the linebacker position. The Bills have been a run-stuffing team since Matt Milano got back, and that was their biggest weakness. This Bills team they're going to give – that's the team in the NFL. I would rather play the Chiefs right now than play the Buffalo Bills with the way that they're rolling. If you date the last 3 games, they're averaging 47 points per game. The last 3
That's
games.
even when they had Matt Barkley in their quarterback in 2 last week.
Yeah,
and
that was against the very good Miami Dolphins defense.
Yeah, and that's funny because you said so let's start off here. So you said the 2 best teams in your opinion are in the AFC. It's funny
Yes.
because you see a team like the Dolphins miss the playoffs at 10-6, and they had to watch a team that has 7 wins and a team that has 8 wins compete. 2 teams that have 2 less wins at least compete in the NFC this weekend instead of them. So that's tough for them. But the Buffalo Bills, that's what frightens me a little bit about the Buffalo Bills. Why I'm sold on them, but I still feel like they need some time. But the Buffalo Bills, bottom line, they're so young that it's not a make or break year for them. But it is a very, very good year to build off. If they don't make it, I don't want to be negative right off the tangent I'm going to go on. But like you said, an offensive team. I feel like they're trending towards being an offensive team when they've had that defensive identity for a while. So that scares me a little bit if the offense does come a little bit stagnant and they have to rely on the defense, and it's just not up to par like it used to be. And you saw those Indianapolis Colts. I mean, they're sneaky. We saw them go into, I think it was Week 12, Thursday Night Football, 17-13, not really creating too much on offense, just kind of getting field goals, pushing down the field, and just whomp the Titans in the second half, just absolutely whomp them. Obviously, special teams had a big part to do with that, but they were just moving the ball up and down the field. Michael Pittman was going off. T.Y. Hilton later on in the season has kind of gotten his form back with Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers, obviously one of the most experienced players. I'm obviously not the highest on him.
He's not experienced. He's a fossil.
Yeah, he is a fossil, but he is a world treasure though. He's a good guy.
The Colts offense. The Colts offense, they need that. I mean, luckily for them, Jonathan Taylor has really got it going these last few weeks to close out the regular season. But if they
not fumbling the playoffs, though.
But if they
better not be fumbling again.
If they get down like a couple scores to the Bills, it's over.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Phillip Rivers not leading you back.
You can't really rely on, like I said, that game is obviously kind of an outlier. They played really well in that game. I do credit them with the win versus the Titans, but obviously a lot had to do with the special teams blunders. And obviously the Titans at the time had like a guy from UPS literally showed up to their facility to sign the contract, and the UPS kicking punts for them. So, but with the Indianapolis Colts, they're obviously just going to have to stick to the game plan. Everybody knows it. They're going to have to play really good defense. Why their defense was ranked so high. We saw DeForest Buckner make the All-Pro team. That was a great trade. There was a lot of trades when you also brought up Stephon Diggs when we were talking about the Bills. There's so many good trades, and there was trades that were won on both sides this season. Like, look at the Vikings. The Vikings aren't upset, really, that they don't have Stephon Diggs anymore, and I don't really think if they even had Stephon Diggs, it would have really changed the way that their season went.
No, definitely not.
And vice versa. I think the Bills would have taken that all day long. Justin Jefferson would have been great for the Bills offense, but I don't know if he's putting up numbers like Stephon Diggs did.
No, definitely not.
So it was a win-win for both sides. DeForest Buckner was traded for a 13th overall pick. A lot of people were like I was upset from the perspective of the 49ers breaking up the Oregon Twin Towers. And the 49ers this year actually battled really hard. They ended up sweeping the Rams, I believe, and
they did.
And they beat Arizona to upset them Week 16. So that's a team that's going to be roaring back next year. And another reason why the NFC is so lacking this year. I mean, they ended up getting 6 or 7 wins off the top of my head, and they were beating up on their division and actually putting up a fight with so many key injuries. They don't even have a legit quarterback right now, and we don't even know what's going to happen with the quarterback. But
that's going to be
a nice template to go on. But they obviously gave up DeForest Buckner to reload with some younger talent, even though DeForest isn't old. He's busting into his prime, but 6'8", right up the middle. I mean, if one guy's going to be able to take Josh Allen to the ground with that huge frame, DeForest Buckner breathing down his throat is not going to be too much fun. So Darius Leonard as well. Rocky Sin, who I wasn't that big on in the draft, but he's actually a really, really, really good player now. He's a very solid corner. So.
And Julian Blackmon as well.
Julian Blackmon, he was in the hunt for Defensive Player of the Year at one point this season. So there's a lot of talent on the Colts. They're kind of a lot of unknown name guys. So I think they're going to be hungry. They're going to go into Buffalo. It's a weird thing. Do you think other teams could feed off the energy that Buffalo gives in a positive way? Because Buffalo has so much just vibrant energy in general. I feel like if I was an opponent going into the Bills Mafia, going into the Bills Stadium, coming to Buffalo to play a playoff game, just the atmosphere, the crazy weather, just all this craziness going on, it would just click something in my head, and I'd just be really excited and motivated to play. It feels like true football.
See, the Bills are actually going to have fans in the stands for the first time this weekend. I know everybody who's going into the game has to pass a COVID test, so they are being safe about it. But that's going to be all. It would have sucked for the Bills to host their first playoff game in 20 some odd years and then not be able to have any fans there. Like, that would suck. But I'm glad they're getting fans in the building, so that atmosphere is going to be insane. But when it comes to like a vibe, like I honestly I get a 2017 Eagles vibe from this Buffalo Bills team. You have a second year quarterback ascending into MVP talks, like the Eagles did with Carson Wentz. Now Bills have Josh Allen. You went and got him a number one receiver like the Eagles did with Alshon Jeffrey. Bills have Stephon Diggs. You have a rotational backfield, no real workhorse like the Eagles had. And then you had a good group of guys on the defense that just played good as a unit, and you had guys that you could rely on. Meanwhile, the Eagles were up front with Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and Chris Long and guys like that. The Bills have that in the secondary with Poyer Hyde and Tre'Davious White. I honestly think I'm getting serious 2017 Eagles vibes from this Bills team.
That's interesting. That might be a pretty good comparison. I don't know if I'm willing to go that far yet, but I think there's a little bit more stability on Buffalo's side at the quarterback position. But shout out to Buffalo because they came a long way. I mean, we saw them playing in the playoffs a couple years back in San Diego right before the move was made. Or not San Diego. Yeah, it was. No, not San Diego. I'm tripping. Back with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they're playing in playoff games, and Jalen Ramsey is picking off Nathan Peterman, who had to come in when the Bills had 3 points because Tyrod Taylor was injured on the play before.
Yeah.
So they've come a long way, and that was only a few years ago. That wasn't too long ago. So they've come a long way. Shout out to them. I'll be rooting for them. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I don't want to go this, that, the other way. I want to keep my bias. But if there's one team that I'd be excited for just that whole entire organization and fan base, it would just be so great to see the Buffalo. But we know what does happen and what the storyline would be if they were to make it to the Super Bowl. And what happened
4 trips, 0 championships,
and 4 empty times. So
yeah,
special teams, we talk about it all the time. There might be a Flying Dutchman horseman that's waiting to come make them miss a Billy Cundiff-like Ravens 30-something yard field goal in the Super Bowl or something, just like they did versus the Cowboys or the Giants, whoever it was back in the 90s. So who knows? But
I'm gonna put this out here right now, and we could come back to this if people want to hold me to it. As I don't know if everybody knows it, but I actually live in Tampa, Florida, and that is where the Super Bowl is this year. And I'm rooting for the Bills for this reason. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be on the Bills every week from a betting perspective, so I might not be rooting for them every week. But as a fan, I would love to see the Buffalo Bills and that fan base get the chance to experience a Super Bowl. But I'm going to say this right now, and I want you guys to hold me to it. If the Buffalo Bills make the Super Bowl and go on a run, upset the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, I will be live on Facebook on the Unsportsmanlike Content page. Maybe I won't be live. Maybe I'll just record it. We'll see how it's going to go. I'm going to be out getting content, though, down there during Super Bowl week. I will get slammed through a table by Bills Mafia.
Isn't that outlawed?
Super Bowl week.
That's outlawed at the tailgates, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not outlawed in Florida, though.
Oh, no. I mean, Florida, the governor was saying, wasn't WWE like mandatory for their economy? So,
yeah.
You know what I mean? I think he's down to see some people get thrown.
You'll see that headline. Bills Mafia slams Florida man through table.
That's a great headline. I mean, you type in Florida man on Google, and there's a lot of different headlines that'll pop up on there.
Oh, yeah.
But I was listening to a podcast with legendary Bills receiver, Andre Reed, and he was saying when he used to even be practicing back in the 90s, there's people tailgating the games at like Thursday on a Sunday game in the parking lot, sitting, waiting, ready to tailgate. So, yeah, that vibe, just what they're able to do. They're a dangerous team for sure. But I think the Indianapolis Colts are going to put up a fight and they're going to compete early. But I will give the Bills the nod on this one, at least for this week. And I think they'll be able to push on. And I think it's going to be, I think it's just going to be a crazy weekend in general. So I feel like there's going to be some erratic plays that really in crucial moments that are going to change some things for some teams. But let's get on to this next matchup. We got a divisional one. We got a couple divisional matchups we got to cover before we get out of here. I'm going to say the best for last. So I'm going to go with this one. The Rams and the Seahawks. NFC West. Before the season started, you looked at the NFC West, and it was a powerhouse. Obviously, a lot of injuries. We talked about what happened to the 49ers, and obviously the Cardinals and the 49ers took the Cardinals out of playoff contention, this, that, the other. So before the season started, I think a lot of people were down on the Rams for whatever reason. They didn't really put too much stock into that defense. They thought Todd Gurley leaving. I love Todd Gurley. I think he's a great player. Still really productive with rushing touchdowns, at least for Atlanta Falcons, but they obviously passed the ball, and Russell Gage has been balling this year. Obviously, we know Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones are, but they were saying possibly Matt Ryan and Julio Jones could be on the move, so that might switch some things up in the top 5 of the draft, but we're talking NFL playoffs here. So a lot of people were down on the Rams this year, and they just didn't put too much stock into them, and they thought they lined them up as the worst team in the NFC West. I think a lot of people were intrigued by the Seahawks because the trade that they made, obviously, for Jamal Adams and the hierarchy that they have on both sides of the ball and pretty good depth behind it as well. But sometimes it's just with the Seahawks, man, it's just this back end of the season, that offense started off so hot. I thought Russell Wilson was a lock for the MVP. He threw what? Didn't he have 22 touchdown passes in like the first 5 or 6 games? It was like an NFL record. He was on pace with Pat Mahomes and the NFL TD passing record for a season. And they kind of just flare out. And it was right around the time Jamal Adams got healthy. Their defense just starts allowing 20 points or less every game since Jamal Adams gets healthy. So it's like, how do I feel about this team? Because it's like a seesaw that I teeter. Their offense, we know the potential of that offense. We saw what the receivers were able to do. Chris Carson, when he's healthy. Carlos Hyde last year was a 1,000-yard rusher and had a long run this season as well and has played well in spare times. The defense has played really well recent. Mm-hmm. Can they put it together? Because if they can put it together, man, this Seahawks team can go on a run.
See, my take on this game is, well, first, Seattle. I mean, yeah, like you said, Russ started off super hot, but then he hit a stretch in the middle of the season where he went 3 weeks combined, 3 in a row with 10 total turnovers. That's not going to get it done. And with the Seahawks defense, I mean, Trey Flowers on the edge, Shaquille Griffin on the edge they're okay. Like they're solid corners. Like not they don't really have, outside of Jamal Adams and Bobby Wagner, they don't really have a guy who's gonna like jump off the page at you or jump off the tape on you if you're an opposing coach watching that
Reed's
defense
been playing
film.
very well in the back end of the season, so they definitely got a lot of reinforcement. Obviously, having Jamal Adams back,
but their problem, their main problem on defense was secondary. And then I know on paper they're like, oh shit, they just traded for Jamal Adams, one of the best safeties in the game. But if you know Jamal Adams and you watch him play, he's an in the box. He plays like a linebacker. He's more of a pass rusher than he is a coverage guy, and he's an in the box safety. Their secondary didn't really get better by adding Jamal Adams, so they still can get torched through the air pretty relatively easy. But they're not going to allow a lot on the ground when you have Adams and Bobby Wagner, and then they traded for Carlos Dunlap and guys like that up front. So, I mean, they still have their biggest weakness is still their biggest weakness in the secondary, even after adding Jamal Adams. But when it comes to this game this weekend between the Rams and the Seahawks, as everybody knows, Jared Goff had thumb surgery 2 weeks ago. Obviously, John Wolford, shout out to him,
There's still no starter name for the game yet.
First career start, eliminated the Cardinals, given he didn't have to go against Kyler Murray, but still, kudos to him. This game is real simple, in my opinion, this weekend. If Jared Goff plays, the Rams win. If Jared Goff doesn't play, the Seahawks win.
You think Jared Goff really is the X factor for this game?
See, I'm not crazy about Jared Goff as like an overall quarterback when it comes to like comparing to other guys, but I think he's that
In
much
this
better.
spot, you like the matchup a lot because, like you
He's
said, the
that
Seahawks
much better
defense
than
is very
Wofford. Yeah,
vulnerable.
and Wofford was actually had most of his success last week running the ball
Yeah,
on the
he ended up
Seattle
not even throwing a
defense.
touchdown pass at a pick. I think it was like 253
Yeah,
yards. So,
but he had 56 rushing yards.
yeah, when,
So I
like I
mean
said,
that's.
the being able to use your legs is like a whole nother dynamic that opens up for the offense.
But I
So,
think
I mean,
from a
that's something that Russell Wilson
matchup
was able to do.
standpoint,
If you watch the playoff game with the Eagles last year, he man coverage versus that Eagles defense, he was absolutely annihilating them, just running all over. And then when he had to make the passes, he made the passes. And DK Metcalf went for 161. So that Seahawks defense, if we can get that Seahawks defense and offense up to par with each other, I think they're a very, very dangerous team. They could find themselves in the NFC Championship.
I think
Happen,
the Seahawks need Tyler Lockett to step up.
100%.
He was another guy where we were like, oh, Tyler Lockett, like, how do we keep forgetting about this guy every year? And then he just kind of just like.
Well, a lot of his numbers
tails
this
off.
year were like kind of inflated with certain games. Obviously,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Sunday night game versus
He
the
would have
Cardinals. He had some games last week. He went crazy too. But there's certain he ended up with 100 catches. So at the end of the day, they just did so much damage so early in the season that like the stats were just catching up to you because you've seen such a dry product, and then you're like, oh, Tyler Lockett has 100 catches this year, and you saw DK and what he finished with. So that's why they're so dangerous, because I feel like they're not even clicking, but they're able to turn it on this weekend, and the Rams are preparing for a team that they're looking on tape that has played the past couple weeks, and they're not ready for the onslaught of what this potential offense for the Seattle Seahawks can do. And it might be a very, very long day for the Rams.
They're going to need Tyler
The
Lockett.
biggest key.
They're going to need Tyler Lockett and a second option to step up because, as you talked about earlier, Jalen Ramsey, DK Metcalf's going to spend his weekend in prison.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey is the best defensive back in football. I tell everybody every single year. People just don't believe it. They want to say Stephon Gilmore. I love Stephon Gilmore. He's a great player, but just the physicality that Jalen Ramsey brings is a whole nother dynamic. Like he's an absolute dog. Like go look at the Golden Tate situation. He's a literal dog, like a straight up dog. It does not matter. He does not care. Like he's a dog, straight dog. So, and he showed up. They were talking beef. And bam, what happened? He literally suplexes him on the field. There's not another corner that can lay that hit in the entire NFL. So we have a special guest chiming in real quick here not to get back to what we talked about. We're going to do it real quick, but we got our boy Skip Layton on here too.
Yeah.
But
he said we talk about the Saints yet. They were the first.
Yeah, we got your boy Skip. If you're in here right now, we got your boy Matt Nagy in here saying my team is going to get whooped. I don't know if we put some Matt Nagy burner.
Yeah, Matt Nagy burner chiming in.
The Matt Nagy burner's on here, so yeah, I believe so too. Honestly, yeah, Matt Nagy, I believe. And if you're listening to this, Matt Nagy, I don't know, your job could be up for grabs.
If you want some advice, get the ball to Darnell Mooney. That's the only thing I can say to Matt Nagy for this weekend. Yeah.
Our boy Skip Layton's up in here. He's excited for his Saints to make another disappointing playoff run like they have the past couple seasons. So sorry to go quick with the comments.
We talked about
Saints. Yeah, boys, here we go.
We talked about the Saints earlier. Just to give you a little breakdown, Skip, we both said the Saints are going to win. But the only thing the Bears have working for them is the fact that the Saints somehow choke a game that they're not supposed to every year in the playoffs. So that's the only thing the Bears have working for them. And the fact that this matchup versus the Bears offense kind of benefits Drew Brees and his noodle that he has for a right arm.
Yeah. The only thing I will say for the Saints is there's like a different type of vibe to it. They're not being cocky like they normally are. So I feel like they might have learned from years past, and that could be dangerous, the silent assassin approach to it. So that could really that. But that's a great transition.
I think Drew Brees went in there and was like, this is my last year, bitches. Focus. No ski mask, no none of this bullshit.
I've had pointed at Taysom Hill. Like, you're going to have 10 years of this, so you might as well tighten up now. So, but that's a great.
It's me, Jameis Winston, or a tight end. Take your pick.
Yeah, literally. But I mean, the only time I won't complain about that is fantasy football. I mean, that was one of the greatest times this year when you were able to run the quarterback and the tight end. That was great. Give me some Tyree Jackson action next year in that form and sign me up, and I'll play fantasy.
Yeah, the first 3 picks next year in fantasy: Taysom Hill, Logan Thomas, and
Shout
Tyree
out to
Jackson.
Logan Thomas, man. I was watching Logan Thomas at Virginia Tech years ago. I'm so happy that he's balling in some form. He's like the guy you take in Madden every year, like Brent Hundley. You take him in Madden, like 60-something overall, 6 foot something. Tyree Jackson was that guy the past couple of years of Madden, honestly. But 6 foot guys with all the prototype, and then maybe they're just not quarterbacks. But if you're an athlete, you're an athlete. It does not matter.
Football players.
Fans are the greatest athletes on the field. They do everything: block, catch, end arounds with some teams. Like Evan Ingram gets end arounds and stuff like that. Travis Kelce's able to do a lot for the Chiefs offense. So Skip saying trade for Deshaun Watson.
Trade the draft for Watson. I'm with you. I think there's so many teams like the Broncos, the Jags, the Jets. Like, I don't care if you're gonna get Lawrence. You take Watson. He's
so disrespectful to Drew Brees. Most disrespectful thing ever. Send him somehow, like send him in a package to Houston for the end of his career for Deshaun Watson with nobody around him. Just like Brandon Cooks maybe running some routes, but obviously Brandon Cooks gets traded like Tobias Harris.
That's what they were throwing out. Not to get sidetracked, just to make this real quick, dude. There's been so many like trade like throws out there. Like people are like giving away like their shitty. Not to say Drew Brees like falls into that category.
I saw the craziest edits on people. Like
this dude tweeted yesterday. He said, "Yo, if I'm the Dolphins," and he's like he's a sports writer like from Miami, and he said, "If I'm the Dolphins, I'd trade Tua, the 3rd pick, and next year's first, and don't even think twice." I was like, "That's not even close to enough." What the fuck are they gonna do with Tua? They just went 4-12 with Watson.
And so was nowhere near even close to as developed, and without weapons. And I just like the whole left-handed quarterback thing, switching your entire offense because of a left-handed quarterback. So, if they would have had Ryan Fitzpatrick at available week 17, things could have been different. And that was just
they just never benched Ryan Fitzpatrick. They're in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think they were scared that I think they benched him because they were scared of the Tampa Bay Ryan Fitzpatrick coming back, where he was so hot that one season and then he just completely flared out and they missed the playoffs. But that was just Tampa Bay's luck in general with how long they were just missing the playoffs for that long. And obviously they're back in the playoffs now, so that's just good for the NFL in general. But we're talking about the silent assassins approach that the Saints are taking.
Yeah, but just a quick little 2-hitter real quick. You were talking about the Dolphins making a quarterback change. They were having success with Ryan Fitzpatrick, but then Brian Flores decided to head to a early offseason.
It just doesn't make sense because
you didn't get the joke, did you?
Nah, it's just like
heading to a
heading to an off season. Yeah,
I
got some little corny jokes. 2020, I'm trying to get a little fresh here. So I see you, man. If we had our boy Nick on here, he could have been producing that. He could have added a little.
Yeah, he could have had the sound effects.
Little sound effects, but it was just a shame because you look at their first start, and it was the team that we were just talking about, the Rams. They ended up upsetting the Rams in that start. At the time, I guess you could consider an upset. And Tua threw for 93 yards, and they had a 75-yard fumble return for a touchdown out of the 28 points they scored in a 93-yard.
It kind of gave the coaching staff like false hope, like, oh, this team's still not missing.
93-yard punt return as well, special teams.
Yeah.
How many times do you get 75-plus returns between your defense and your special teams?
And then the week after that game when they played the Rams, they went and played the Cardinals and then got another fumble recovery for a touchdown. And I'm just like, yo, this team is just.
And that was Kyler's biggest thing this year, was swinging the ball out when he's trying to make erratic spinning plays so far in the backfield. And he had so many plays where he got strip sacked on those type of plays. But the Dolphins, they had the touchdown that Tua did throw in that game was like a red zone look, and it's just like, think of it in this perspective. What's the payout for a team's defense or special teams to combine for 2 75-plus yard touchdowns? That payout on a bet slip would be outrageous.
Yeah, 100 probably gets you 850.
Yeah, that's just outrageous. You know what I mean? Like,
maybe more.
And that just happened, and it was some false hope. And I feel like they were influenced around the league as well. There might have been some pressure with how well Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert were playing as well for that to happen. But I mean, at the end of the day, you got to make your own decisions. You can't really look at
Absolutely.
franchises.
You got a chance to make the playoffs for the first time in years. You gotta jump at that opportunity. And I'm sure Dolphins fans would have been 100% okay with putting Tua on ice for this year. And it might have been actually good for him to be able to watch like a playoff week of preparation to see
Exactly.
how
And
that goes
completely
down.
get that hip completely healthy.
Yeah.
They say it's completely healthy, but just even some more
Yeah.
added time.
Whether you were winning or losing, I don't think there was any reason to put
There's
Tua
no
on the
reason to
field.
force them. Look at some of the greatest quarterbacks who are playing this week, and look how long they took this. Aaron Rodgers, how long did he sit? That's
Yeah.
why Aaron Rodgers is such a killer, because his patience. He relax. I'm about to go out there and throw 5 touchdowns. Come on, all to
Yeah.
Devontae Adams too, or maybe Robert
Yeah.
Tonyan could end it the 2021 season if they re-sign him this offseason with 30 catches and 15 touchdowns like he had this year or whatever it was. So it's crazy how some of the players didn't get recognized. Some of the non-household names don't get recognized for their strong performances this season.
Uh-huh.
Robert Tonyan had like 10 plus touchdowns or 10
Yeah.
double-digit touchdowns at the tight end position who didn't even get recognized as a Pro Bowl or anything.
Yeah,
So
that's
even my guy Evan
yeah.
Ingram got up in there. I love Evan Ingram, but
That's
sometimes it
terrible.
disappoints me, and that honestly disappointed me. And
Yeah,
accolade for Evan Ingram.
Tunyon is the two biggest crimes of not making the Pro Bowl this year is definitely Tunyon, the Packers tight end, and then the cornerback J.C. Jackson for the New England
Yeah,
Patriots. How the hell did he not get in to the Pro Bowl when you lead the league in interceptions?
doesn't make
Makes no
sense.
sense. Makes no sense.
It just kind of just like shows the whole system. Then
But
on
that's
top,
why I laugh. That's why I laugh. Like the Pro Bowls, it's all like anything that's decided by the fans is a joke. Because I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like
it's all
90
social media lobbying. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly. It's all
the
like
Twitter accounts, like,
campaigns.
yo,
Like
go do this, go do that, like get this guy
if
in.
you tweet like hashtag like Brandon Graham Pro Bowl or some shit, like
Yeah,
it's a vote. Like
I was
what?
honestly a
Like
little upset with Chase Young making it to the Pro Bowl, because Chase Young had obviously was stellar this season, could have won and most likely will win Defensive Player of the Year. But it's like, I don't think he was a Pro Bowler. I don't think his numbers suggest Pro Bowl type numbers. But I mean, then again, his impact kind of goes beyond the numbers. But I think there were some guys that kind of got left off in that aspect as well. But let's move on from these Miami Dolphins talk. Silent assassin approach. That's what the Saints are taking.
they didn't earn the right to be on the playoff preview.
Yeah, not at all. But they somehow made it on somehow again.
Yeah.
So, the silent assassin approach, something that the Steelers and Juju Smith-Schuster are not taking at all. Did you see what Juju said today?
Yeah, but I don't think it matters. They're gonna beat the dog shit out the Browns.
You think so?
They're gonna beat the dog shit out the Browns.
Why you say that?
I'm having so much money on the Steelers this week. I bet it when it was 4.5 before the COVID shit started. I bet it again at 6.5. It's no Stefanski this weekend for the Browns. They're playing without their head coach because of COVID issues. And you have a quarterback making his first career playoff start in Baker Mayfield. And I know he's been better, but he's not going to have that guy who's got him to that point. And Stefanski on the sidelines this week. And look at Josh Allen last year. He was playing pretty well, but again, making your first career start, he looked like he dropped acid in the final 5 minutes of the game and played like shit. And then you can look throughout the history of the NFL. Quarterbacks making their first career start just aren't like that for the most part. Like even they could be playing at an MVP level, but there's something different about their first ever playoff action. I just think it's just you're telling me 80% of their offensive line is either not playing or hurt, or they're playing hurt. They're going to be without Jack Conklin, that's confirmed, and Teller might play, but he's really banged up. No Stefanski on the sidelines. Their defense already sucks. Like the Steelers almost beat them last week with the Browns really trying to win, and then the Steelers had no Hayden, no Hayward, and no Big Ben playing. They're gonna absolutely steamroll the Cleveland Browns this weekend. I think this is gonna be the biggest ass whooping of the whole entire playoffs.
I think that definitely could be a possible outcome for the game. I would put it that way. If one team were to really turn the Jets on the other team, I think it would be the Steelers.
The Steelers sat their starters this week, so they would play the Browns this week.
Yeah. I mean, With the Browns, they're a little dangerous if they can get the run game going. Obviously, Bud Dupree was such a big loss. That was such a big loss when Bud Dupree went down.
Yeah,
And that really, really opened up gaps in the Steelers' defense at times. Their defense or their offense gets really, really dry though at times too for the Steelers. So that's what I'm a little bit worried about. But for some reason, I think their wide receivers are going to play a little bit better. But regardless of who they're throwing out on the field, if someone is coming at me like that with Juju Smith-Schuster, we already saw what another divisional foe did to him after he was dancing TikToks on top of the Bengals logo. And Von Bell, that was the biggest hit I've seen in the NFL, honestly, since Rodney McLeod was with the Rams and he laid that one hit. I forget who it was on that deep pass.
on Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest hits I've ever seen. That hit on Juju Smith was literally a Madden hit, and it was like the best animation for a hit stick that you can possibly get. Went flying 5 yards, ball in the air, had no clue where he was, like stumbling when he's getting up, looking all over. I mean, that's bulletin board material. And
100%.
I think Baker might be back to being that dog again. I'm not saying he's going to do anything wild, like go absolutely college.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Baker Mayfield.
I feel like a lot of people.
I'm not a fan of him this weekend.
You're entitled to that opinion. I just feel like they're going to be able to make some plays with some guys that are. I mean, they had some distractions.
Here's why I think this Stefanski thing is like bigger than like if any other head coach like wasn't like outside of like Bill Belichick or something was like the head coach missing the game is Stefanski's their play caller.
Yeah.
Is like now it's turned over to somebody else.
Production comes from too. It was when he came back from Minnesota and he was able to bring that over. What changed their entire offense?
I think there's a low key chance we see Freddie Kitchens Baker Mayfield this weekend. Freddie Kitchens version of Baker Mayfield this weekend.
I don't even know if Freddie Kitchens wants to see that, man. Come on now. You saw even the first week of the season, it was like that when they got blown out by the Ravens and they're throwing outrageous amounts of passes. And then they finally get their first one of the season the next week, week 2, and Baker threw like 23 times and they scored 35 points. Mm-hmm. So that just shows that transition that they were able to make. But it's going to be interesting how they set the game plan up. The Saints also were kind of doing that. If Skip's still in here, the Saints were doing that this week too with Alvin Kamara. They were literally having them on like virtual reality type things in the meetings. So there's a couple teams going through that right now. But obviously the head coaching position. Not only that. You harped on the offensive line, but Joel Bitonio, you say Wyatt Teller was playing great this season. Obviously emerged as one of the better offensive linemen in the league, but Joel Bitonio has been that for a very long time. He might be the voice of the locker room now since Joe Thomas has left and being one of the veterans, and he's not going to be there as well. And like you said, that interior defensive line, man, for the Steelers is just ferocious. Hayward to it. They have so many different guys that can just come at you. And
TJ Watt.
Yeah, so Baker Mayfield playing with limited resources. He even had a receiver get arrested this week with his other tackle, his starting rookie offensive tackle for drag racing on Tuesday next to each other. So, I mean, that was another distraction to add on top of everything. But, it's going to come down to how Baker's able to handle this moment and this situation. And if the pass rush for the Steelers is able to play as well, then, like you said, there's a good chance that the Steelers run away comfortably. But if this comes into a weird game, the Steelers start turning the ball over early, like we've seen at times, we're going to be in for one. Because if the Browns can take a lead into the locker room and run the ball in the second half, they have a very, very good shot in coming out with a victory, for which would be, you want to talk about being happy for a fan base. I mean, I feel like any NFL fan would be excited to see not only the Cleveland Browns get a win in the playoffs after this long, but just to upset the Steelers in general.
Imagine an AFC Championship game of the Buffalo Bills versus the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I mean, you said earlier the Saints, that would be so crazy. That's like 90, 95, 96 football right there. That like gives me crazy vibes right there. I'd love to see it. But you said about the Saints.
And then the Bears football team. NFC Championship game. That would just be the epitome of 2020.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because you said about the Saints losing games that they're not supposed to. And they always had that cocky mentality. We said they're taking the silent assassin approach now. Who's that team? Who's the cocky team in the NFL now that kind of everybody hates now? It's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So, I mean, if those wide receivers don't show up and they're trying to do too many TikTok dances in the locker room and they don't show up on the field, I mean, it could be a long day. So they could be bringing upon bad energy to them with having too much positive energy and not being too much focused on what is the actual issue. And obviously, Juju was told to stop dancing on logos, and he's just not – he won't stop running his mouth. So we'll see. But, I mean, if I'm a pro athlete, regardless of what background I come from, what draft picked, or where I am on this team, if I get an opportunity and someone's talking shit on that type of level, then it's on. I'll tell you that.
100%.
It's on 100%. So we'll see the best for last here. Rematch from the playoffs that we saw before. Will it go the same way, though? Ravens-Titans?
I am all over the Baltimore Ravens this weekend.
Okay, all right.
I'm all over the Baltimore Ravens.
I haven't heard. You're giving love. You were giving love to who were you giving love to today? You never give love to the Ravens or Lamar Jackson, so I'm excited to see what you had to say about that. Who else earlier? You were giving love to some. Who I have to go look down the list because you were giving lots of. Oh, Jared Goff. You were giving Jared Goff high praise too. So
yeah, he's my X factor this weekend. But no, the Ravens. The common misconception, first of all, this Titans defense is not the Titans defense that played this Ravens team last year in the playoffs. They're missing a bunch of key guys, and the guys who are actually instrumental in slowing down this Ravens rushing attack. This Titans defense is horrible.
The Titans defense has allowed the most passing touchdowns of any playoff team in NFL history with 36.
This Titans defense is horrible. I think the Ravens are going to be able to put up points at will in this game, and if the Ravens get up and they start hammering that ground game, it's so hard to come back because they can just control the clock. Lamar is going to have his bad taste in his mouth. Everybody's saying he's 0-2 in the playoffs. He can't get it done in crunch time. I'm one of them guys. But
we saw versus the Browns. We were just hitting on with that big moment. That might have been the best game in the NFL regular season. That 47-45, 42 Browns Ravens games, and we saw Lamar Jackson show up huge. And
but I think
showed up huge in that toilet in the locker room as well. But I mean,
this matchup this week though is like you just mentioned, like the passing touchdowns and like the shit that the Titans give up through the air. I think this is a recipe for a big Lamar Jackson game. But then the reason on the flip side is everybody's like Derrick Henry, 2,000 yards, NFL MVP candidate, best running back in the league. The common misconception is that Derrick Henry ran all over this Ravens defense the last time they played. They can't stop him. One, the Ravens were without two of their best D linemen who are key cogs in slowing down the run. But going into the fourth quarter of that game, Derrick Henry had 18 carries for 47 yards. That's not running all over anybody. He ripped off a cup 2 or 3 long runs in the fourth quarter, and then, of course, everybody knows, put Earl Thomas on a poster for the rest of his life. But everybody's like, oh, and now everybody's, oh, my God.
They were really hitting on play action passes. The tight ends were very good for the Tennessee Titans.
Yes.
And that's something that when they open up, when the Titans are playing their best, Ryan Tannehill was throwing for like 4 touchdowns. Derrick Henry's got a decent amount of yards, maybe around 100 or 80 or 100 around for his standard. But they've got 4 different passing touchdowns, and they'll have it to 4 different receivers. Jonnu Smith, who can take over games because he's so athletic. Corey Davis, who, if Alex Smith didn't have the comeback player of the year, it would be Corey Davis's trophy, in my opinion. So, I mean, they got some weapons that they can utilize. And but like you said, the format and the style that both these teams want to play, it's going to come down to who's able to get to that point first and be able to do that. Who's going to be able to get the lead, run the ball down the other team's throat? Because at times this Ravens defense kind of looks lost too when they have to defend the run so hard. Obviously, they're pass coverage wise, they're an elite group, but they are susceptible at times. But it really just comes down to the two offenses, in my opinion. And I think the Ravens are a little bit more balanced on both sides of the ball. And I like the Ravens going into this match. I mean, Lamar Jackson has been really on a tear since everybody's been since he had that little. I don't really know what it was. He was a little slowed down in practice really early in the season. I think it was the week they played the Washington football team with his knee a little tad bit. But ever since then, and everybody was saying, oh, it's not the same MVP Lamar that we saw last year, 36 touchdowns, which I don't think Lamar personally will ever reach again.
No.
A very high number. But this back end of the season, he's really, really been balling. And this Ravens team was in jeopardy of not even making the playoffs at one point, and they were really faltering.
They needed help. They needed help around the league.
So I really like the Ravens this week.
So do I.
But, if Derrick Henry's able to get going early and start snapping runs early, then it's going to be a tough one for the Ravens.
I think you stop Derrick Henry, you stop the Titans. That's
100%. And you really 29 total pass attempts between Ryan Tannehill.
And I think an element an element that the Ravens have this year that they didn't have last year is they had an old, broke down, washed up Mark Ingram running the rock and asking to be the guy, and coming off an injury, a hamstring injury at that time last year. This year they have fresh leg J.K. Dobbins, who they can rely on.
Gus Edwards too. Gus Edwards as well, who runs the rock. They were two different running styles as well. We saw J.K. Dobbins. His breakthrough game was versus the Steelers this year when the Steelers ended up beating the Ravens 27-24. But the Ravens rushed for 265 yards. Dobbins had like 110 plus rushing yards that game. Was breaking. That game, J.K. Dobbins. I thought Josh Jacobs was running around in a Ravens uniform. I'd never seen a guy break that many tackles. Like it looked like Adrian Peterson. He was literally breaking like almost. It literally took like 4 Steelers every time that J.K. Dobbins was trying to get tackled late in that game. So if they're able to get going, I mean, this Ravens team could really run away with this, because I feel like
this game absolutely
have to play to a certain style, but the Ravens have kind of molded this into they're able to do versatile things. So last thing we're going to hit on, we're going to do a quick roundup, all the matchups, get the confirmed results. Colts, Bills, Sean, what do you got?
Bills.
What's the score? Give me a range, an estimated score here.
Bills 38-20.
38-20. I'm going to take the Bills as well. I'm going to give the Bills 34 and the Colts 24. And I think it's going to be
cover. That's a cover. I'll take it. That's a cover.
Yeah, I'll take it too. Yeah, 34-24. I feel like the Bills are going to be in control for a while. 34-17. Yeah. Colts give them back a little bit late, but yeah, we know the story. Bills are a really hot team. You hit on it before. They're giving off some good vibes, really good energy, and it's not
if they get up in that game early, they're just going to sit back and tee off on Phillip Rivers.
I would love to see the Bills and the Steelers play as much as I want to see the Browns win a playoff game, but I'd love to see the differences of energies playing with each other, because the Steelers feel like they have good energy. And I'm not knocking. I'm not trying to be a hater or anything. Paul's resentment. Tell people they can't be happy. But the difference is the Bills is like happy, focused energy. And the Steelers I feel like is just more so just play around goofy energy. And it's really showed on the field. I mean, the receivers are having issues catching balls and stuff. But we'll get to the Steelers later on in the roundup. Rams, Seahawks.
Jared Goff plays. I'm going Rams. I'm going to assume he's going to be back this week. I'll give me the Rams.
What's the score?
I'll take the Rams 23-16.
Okay, I was about to say, don't come on here and tell me the Rams are about to win and you're going to give the Seahawks more than 20 points, because I know for a fact if the Rams give up more than 20 points, they're not winning that game. I'll tell you that for a fact. But it's going to be interesting to see this game. I think the biggest thing is Seattle. They got to find a way somehow to get the glue off of DK Metcalf. And they got to somehow get matchups whether it's motion or what, you got to get DK Metcalf free from Jalen Ramsey at some point in the game and be able to do it, because Jalen Ramsey does not care. He will follow you, be it just as physical, held him to like 3 catches, 28 yards the past time. And even then, DK can do all he wants, but Jalen Ramsey can go right on Tyler Lockett and shut him down. So we'll see. Rams, so obviously you got Aaron Donald breathing down your throat too. Seattle.
If you just saw my face right there, just like look like I just realized I never sent Nick my fantasy team for the playoff thing.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So hopefully I didn't miss a cutoff. Hopefully I can still get it. And I literally, when you were just talking about like guys like going off and getting free, I'm like,
oh, you're like, oh, man.
I never made my fantasy lineup.
I was thinking to myself, I'm like, what did I say? But yeah, I'll take I'm a big Russell Wilson guy. I got to take Russell Wilson to add to that playoff resume.
I
I'll
like
take
it.
the Seahawks 27-21. This is going to be a funky game, though, a real funky game. This, hold me to it, will have a defensive touchdown.
All
Don't know
right.
which side of the ball. Don't know which team it's going to be from, but there will be a defensive touchdown that will be huge in this game. Huge.
Okay.
Bucks, the Washington football team. That's so crazy. All these teams are abbreviated by their team names, and then it's just Bucks versus Washington.
I'm going Bucks. I gotta
Bucks.
go Bucks. It's a bad matchup for that defense. Brady's gonna get the ball out of his hands quick.
Okay.
They're
So you
gonna
said
roll.
Bucks. I want to hear a score. Bucks are going to run the score up. You said. How many points are we giving the Bucks?
I'll give the Bucks. The Bucks are gonna win. Give me 34 to 14.
Okay, 34-14. So I was gonna escalate that question too. The Bucks would be the highest scoring team depending on what the number you gave me. You gave the Bills 38 though.
Yeah, I actually don't think either of them teams are gonna be the highest scoring team in the week.
Okay, that's interesting for the rest of the matchups we got. So I got the Bucks as well. I think the Bucks. I think the Bucks. It's gonna look like a Madden game. I'm gonna give them actually 38-17.
38-17. I like it.
38-17.
No, the only reason I didn't go higher on the Bucks is because I could see Arians pulling guys.
Yeah. I think my boy Leonard Fournette's going to go for 100 yards somehow just because he's just going to be pounding the rock at the end of the game and he might bust one of those devastating runs that you're out of the playoffs now and you got to get the golf clubs ready at home and everything. So it's going to be a bad time for the Washington team. But shout out to them for even making the playoffs. So, but Miami Dolphins and some other teams are looking at them like, come on, man.
Right.
Come on, man. Ravens Titans. We just went over as our last game, but Ravens Titans.
Ravens win this game 41-23.
41-23. You got my guy. You claim him as a running back still, and he's going to put up a 41 spot. This could possibly and most likely will be your highest scoring team of the weekend. I like it. And you're really down on this Titans team this year. I feel like you're not a big Derrick Henry guy. You were always talking about how Derrick Henry doesn't run as hard as you feel like people think that he does run. But I don't know. I do.
But no, it's not even
spot specific to that game because the Colts defense is good and they're physical, so they were really breaking them down. And I was feeling what you were saying in that moment, but then other times you just watch what he does to defenders and you're just like,
and it's not. I'm down on the Titans, not even so much because of the offense. Like if Derrick Henry gets going, then Tannehill can eat
touchdowns in NFL history going into the playoffs. I mean, in a passing league now, then that's
exactly. That's what I said. They need Henry for Tannehill to be able to be successful, and I just think this Ravens team has the recipe to be. And like I said, and their defense can't. Like they were so good last year because they could rely on Henry and play D. They don't have a defense this year, and like I said, I think the Ravens might score every time they have the ball.
Yeah. Ironically enough, it's 36 allowed touchdowns too, which is the amount that Lamar threw last season. We might tap into that and might see 3 or 4. And last season, when they played, Lamar wasn't even hitting throws outside of the numbers versus the Titans, and he was throwing picks. And he really came on late in that game to kind of make it the stat line look better. But he was really horrible at points in time in that game. So, but like you said, that run game wasn't there for the Ravens last year too. I'm going to take the Ravens, and this might be the closest matchup I see this weekend between two teams and like their levels, just in general, because Derrick Henry is so good. Obviously, like we saw, like his effect of really that 2K and what it means to them. Like they could really control the game if he gets going early. But I got to give it to the Ravens. I'm going to give the Ravens 28 and the Titans 24. You go 28-24, classic matchup right there. Let's go Bears Saints.
Bears Saints.
You said Bears Saints reading it back. I thought you were about to go Bears, and then you were going to give me a distinct.
No.
Like, whoa, now.
No. I'm going to go.
Skip that hard.
I'm going Saints 34-20.
34-20. I'll take the Saints too as well. I think this could be a funky game though, so I'm going to give a funky score because I think this one's going to be a little weird and stuff's going to transpire that probably wouldn't happen in a normal game. I'm going to give the Saints 29. and I'm going to give the Bears 25. And don't ask me why those are the point totals, but I feel like some funky stuff's going to go down this game, maybe some safeties or stuff like that. So, yeah, the Saints are Drew Brees. There's going to be so many legendary quarterbacks standing. We're going to look back at this 2021 second-round playoff bracket, and it might be consist of like 8 of the greatest quarterbacks out of like 25 of all time. You know what I mean? When it's all said and done at one day.
Right.
Be very, very interesting to see. And so many living legends right now. That's why I'm so excited, especially NFC wise. Browns, Steelers. You already told me, so I really want to hear the score. You already told me.
It's gonna be. I'll take Steelers 33-13.
Ooh, 33-13. Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing a high point total from the Browns with all the impacts of the situations that are going on with the organization right now. So I'm going to give the Bears 20, or the Browns 20, I mean. Obviously, I should say the winning score first. So I'm going to take the Steelers, but it's going to be close, 23-20. But I just think it's going to be a sloppy game from both ends, and that's not anything to either side. I just think both sides it's going to be one of those divisional games. It doesn't matter when you line up with the divisional opponents. You know what I mean? It's going to be.
Yeah, I mean the Steelers lost to the Bengals.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And we're talking about guys getting hit, and you add some more bulletin board material with Juju running his mouth still. So that's going to be very intriguing. I wonder what the Steelers locker room said. I mean, they got mad at Antonio Brown for going Facebook Live back in the day.
Yeah.
And now you got this dude out here going crazy again, and this was supposed to be the successor and the guy that was not doing those type of things. So that's interesting to keep a note on. But appreciate you guys joining us on the NFL playoff preview podcast for the 2020 season. Obviously, we're playing the playoffs in 2021. Make sure you guys go check out Viget in the App Store and use promo code capital U, capital C, lowercase sports. Have free 1,000 points to use as you please on there. Sean, like he told you before, is going to have all of his bets for basketball and baseball season coming up exclusively on the Viget app. So make sure that gives you more incentive to go check it out and use the promo code like we said, and you just get to redeem free points. For everybody here at UC Sports, enjoy the playoff weekend, and we'll see you guys. I'll be back for the normal UC Sports podcast either Monday or Tuesday. Sean, when are you recording again?
You could hear my ugly voice later tonight. It won't be live, so you can't watch, but the Green Zone for NFL playoff weekend will drop in a few hours and gets you ready to go. Wake up, grab a cup of coffee, or crack a cold one because it is NFL playoff Saturday.
Yes,
so
sir.
Whatever your poison is, pop that open tomorrow morning or late tonight if you're up, and you can hear all my winnings.
Yes,
I'm going undefeated this weekend.
Okay. I was about to say, I got two things to say. You were talking about time zones with Tom Brady. So we got different time zones all over the place. So make sure you catch the Red Hot Locks podcast, whatever time zone you're in. And second off, I was about to give you some credit. You are very successful with the predictions, but there was a couple ones in there that are a little sketchy this weekend. There's a couple blowouts that I don't know if I'm feeling like that.
I mean, when it comes to betting, like, I just need the Steelers to win by 7.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I gave an inflated number just because it is what it is.
I'm still a victim of just straight money lines, so I need to.
Al Davis said win baby win. I say cover baby cover.
Okay,
that's all I do.
Yeah. I don't know if there's gonna be too much covering from that Bears secondary this weekend, but
my motto is good teams win, great teams cover. I don't give a shit about you winning the game. Cover the spread.
Okay. We've seen some bad teams cover the spread a lot this season.
Absolutely.
Positive records covering the spread and very negative winning records for the NFL in reality. So
it's going to be interesting to see. Just one quick note. It's going to be interesting to see the stadiums that do allow fans and then stadiums that don't. Because honestly, I mean, I've been doing this is now my second year giving out the podcast and giving you guys picks, and then I'm a data-driven bettor. I have an algorithm that I run, and that gives me my number, and then if I see a discrepancy in the market, that's how I know I have an edge one way or the other. And this year, believe it or not, it's normally around 58 to 59% winning percentage for home teams, just in a random NFL game. Believe it or not, it was 50 0.8% this year home teams won. It was almost 50-50 with no crowd in this
That's
year.
very interesting. I'm glad that you added that on the back end here because that is very, very interesting. And there is some teams, like you said, that are allowing some fans
Yeah.
that have a little impact. Like you said, the Bills for the first time this season. That might even it might sound like there's a packed crowd up in the Bills Stadium this weekend. So for everybody here at UC Sports, what's your host, What's the Deal Sports, Zach Deal, co-host Sean Redden. We'll see you guys on the next podcast.
Yes, sir. See you then.